with YouTube and the delay and buffering. Buffering is kind of the world of streaming, and we kind of have to deal with it. But anyway, so we're going to pretend that we're live.
Yeah.
RJ, what are we talking about today? Well, quick introduction. So, in case you hadn't tuned in before, I'm Paul, CEO and co-founder here at Edge on our Gorgeous Little Friday, which we do this little live stream every Friday, 12 p.m. Pacific, and I'm joined here by
RJ, QA, and support.
Cool. RJ is the one that tests our app and makes sure that it's solid before it goes out the door, and it also helps users with any issues, not just with Edge, but sometimes just with cryptocurrency as a whole, sometimes with trading, but he doesn't give advice on trading. Right? Although
sometimes,
might
unless
ask,
you want some personal advice.
People sometimes it's personal advice, but not specifically on trading.
Yeah.
But what are we going to be talking about today, RJ?
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about Steem and Tron and the takeover, and then we're also going to talk a little bit about India, where it's unbanned again.
Where Bitcoin is now unbanned again. Well, we'll talk a little bit about the details of what exactly that ban meant over the past few years. And in a way, some companies that still operated in India as Bitcoin cryptocurrency companies kind of working around the ban, although to pretty much a lot of their detriment. Like they hadn't really been very successful after the ban, but that ban was recently lifted. But let's first talk about the Steem and Tron drama that's been going on for the past week.
Gotcha.
And how that's potentially affecting users in the Steem blockchain as a whole.
Right. So a little background first on Steem. So Steem is a cryptocurrency that launched back in March of 2016, and Steemit was in July of 2016. So they're different. Steem is the actual, the blockchain, the coin, and then Steemit is the website that runs on that. It's a D app that runs on Steem.
Right.
And that one's, for those that don't know what Steemit is, it's like Reddit. So you can do upvotes, downvotes. You get rewarded Steem for participating on the forums, from ranging from upvoting, from writing content. So you're paid directly with Steem. So that's how it is. And then there's 3 different kinds of Steem. For example, there's Steem dollars, which are locked in dollars. There's Steem power. Steem power is where you have funds. The more you have, the more power you have in your votes. So when you upvote someone, the more that person you upvoted earns. And also when you write content on the platform. And then there's also just regular
Steem by itself.
Steem by itself that's worth about 21 cents each.
Now, Steem power is basically Steem, correct me if I'm wrong, except that it happens to be locked.
Locked, right.
And I think there's a specific waiting period before
13
you can unlock.
weeks.
13 weeks before you can unlock the Steem.
And they're kind of going through another process right now because of the Tron ordeal.
Right.
They're trying to get it on like 1 to 3 days.
13 weeks? Not 13 days, but 13 weeks?
13 weeks and then back
Wow,
down.
okay, so it's
down
quite a
to
lot of
3
time.
days.
So, I mean, I know when Steem had launched, it was easily one of the first and most compelling use cases of crypto in social networking, like social media, networking type of applications. And for the longest time, always, people said, oh, Bitcoin blockchain is going to be used for a bunch of stuff. And I said, well, it will, but it'll be primarily financial. Yeah. It'll replace a lot of what financial services had. And that was kind of proven wrong by Steem.
Yeah. It ended up being also like easy and familiar to most users. That's what got them into crypto.
Exactly. I know a lot of the YouTube influencers, podcasters that are into crypto now had kind of early startings with Steem because they were just content creators. And for the first time, you'd be able to create content and get rewarded for it. Yeah. I was on Steem a little bit. Like I personally made just kind of an introduction post on Steem saying who I am, at the time, co-founder of
I got upvoted by a whale.
And it got, and exactly. So if there's a whale that has a lot of Steem or Steem power because they've staked it, now when they upvote content, that content earns money on the next effectively block. Right. So instead, I always call it like subjective mining. So normally miners do objective mining, meaning you have to find the exact right answer. Yeah. But with Steem, you can have a somewhat of a right answer, which is good content, and it gets subjectively mined or staked by other people on the network that have a lot of Steem power that's staked. And if they upvote, that gives your content, effectively more money. Like
you got a bigger cut.
And if I remember correctly, the cut of money you receive is about half in Steem and half in the stablecoin. And this is one of the first kind of wide uses of a stablecoin outside of Tether. Yeah. And it wasn't just for trading, it was actually for earning money that effectively gets locked in this dollar-based amount. And so those Steem dollars go into your kind of Steem wallet, which is part of the Steemit website. Yeah. And so you make a good point. They make a good point that there's a difference between Steem, the blockchain, and Steemit, the company. Yeah. That was, who founded Steemit, the company? Was Dan Limmer part of that?
Yeah, Dan Limmer and also, what's his name? Ned.
Ned, right. Yeah. So they were the founders of Steemit, the company, which also basically created Steem, the blockchain.
Yep.
But there is a difference between the two. One is a company, it operates a website, which is really an interface to the Steem blockchain. It isn't the Steem blockchain itself. It's an interface that people can use to talk to the Steem blockchain by virtue of creating content.
Yeah. Right.
Upvoting.
And then those are still, when you upvote or you create content, those are like the transactions, what happens behind, right?
Yep,
You'll
exactly.
see on like, I think like Steemd, you can see the actual upvotes or like transaction IDs on Explorer.
Exactly.
You
So
can
every
see the
time you
technical
post
stuff.
content, that content actually goes to the Steem blockchain. Every time you upvote, that upvote actually goes onto the Steem
Yeah,
blockchain.
there you go.
I think the only thing that doesn't go on the Steem blockchain is if in your written content you posted a video or an audio file.
Right.
To my understanding, that had to be a link out to somewhere else on the network.
Yeah,
Like,
it goes somewhere else, like
it could be
YouTube,
IPFS or I think like DTube, I believe. At the
DTube's
time,
another one.
was a popular source of content for like streaming media content that you'd put onto a Steem post. So Steem was founded, you said, by Ned and
Ned Scott and Ned Larimer.
and Dan Larimer. And so how did that all kind of start off? What's the history of Steem at the company?
Yeah, good question. So Dan Larimer, he's actually also old school, OG in Bitcoin. He was on the Bitcoin Talk forums back in 2010, and there was an interesting quote that some of you may already know, and that's from Satoshi when he made this famous line: "If you don't believe me or don't get it, I don't have time to try to convince you. Sorry." And so that was actually a response to Bytemaster, and that's Dan Larimer.
Oh, so this is Dan Larimer's account on the Bitcoin Talk forums.
Yeah.
And in conversation with Satoshi himself at the time when Satoshi was still conversing with people publicly.
Yeah. And what Dan Larimer said was that the transactions on Bitcoin take too long. It's taking 10 minutes to confirm would be too long, and that was back in July of 2010, and that's when Satoshi made
early
that
days.
famous comment.
Yeah, and that comment still in the time, because 2010 is when Satoshi disappeared from the public eye, or I guess the public forums, and stopped chatting with the world.
Right.
But prior to that, so it kind of shows Dan Larimer has definitely been in the Bitcoin space for quite some time.
Right.
And like many people, he's one of the people that have been trying to fix scalability, and especially scalability from the viewpoint of transaction confirmation time. Yeah, he's just one of the people that didn't like the 10-minute block times. And since then, he's gone to invent several different blockchains.
Yeah, another one was BitShares.
BitShares, which is still live and active today. Not too many people talk about BitShares anymore.
Right.
But I know it's still being traded. It has a bunch of different assets. It's one of the first blockchains that actually incorporated a lot of tokenized assets on it, including a stablecoin, BitUSD.
Right.
He then went to launch Steem.
Yep, Steem. And
So a little nugget of history about Steem. I need to find a reference to this, but in having talked to some of the team over at Steem, their original idea for Steem was not actually a social network.
Right.
It wasn't meant to be a social network. It was meant to be a financial services application.
Yeah.
But one of the things that they needed in the financial services application was a way for people to communicate with each other,
Yeah,
a way to be able to
messaging.
post messages. And they didn't want those messages to go on a normal centralized server just to facilitate messages for a more decentralized financial services app. And I think it had something to do with insurance.
Right.
I don't recall exactly what type of financial services, but I believe it was insurance. But by the time they built this messaging layer, they realized that this was actually the most valuable part of Steem. Was the messaging
like
layer.
The social media messaging.
The social
part.
media, exactly. And there hadn't been anything like this.
Yeah, there's only I feel like Twister, which is like a kind of like a
nice. I
Twitter.
haven't heard of that one yet.
Yeah, yours.
Exactly.
The
Yep.
Bitcoin Cash now.
Was
right?
originally
Or
Bitcoin. Yours was originally Bitcoin, and then now Bitcoin Cash. And so Steem kind of arose out of a kind of almost a mistake, and the need to have messaging and social media for a financial services app. And up came the Rise. What's kind of been the history of Steem, the blockchain, as far as its adoption? I know you kind of saw it pretty early
so like
on.
I said earlier, so back then, Steem was even at one point number 3 in market cap. So
Three in market cap? I actually didn't know it got that high.
At about 1.5, close to $2 billion in market cap. And so it was right behind Ethereum. So we're talking, this is back in 2018. So the price of Steem was about $8, almost $9
I assume this is
coin.
early 2018, probably like January.
Yeah, right after the
big
Bitcoin boom in
hype cycle.
2017. Yeah.
Got it. So Steem, though, the company, I presume, owns a good chunk of Steem coin.
Yeah.
And so how did that kind of happen from the genesis of the blockchain?
Yeah. So in the beginning, they used to mine it, and there was a bug in the system. I couldn't find much more information on that, but they were mining it, and they had to restart it at one point. And because of that restart, it kind of pissed off a lot of the miners. And the ones that ended up mining, the first to mine it, were like the developers, the team on Steemit, people who were already active on the Bitcoin forums. So before most of the public, it was already public, but before most of the public were aware, it wasn't until about 10 days or so after they already started mining, and it's more.
So it's 10 days after the restart.
Yeah, 10 days after the restart.
So they started the Steem blockchain. It was actually a mineable blockchain at that time, proof of work mining.
A mix.
So many people know now that like, Steem is a proof of stake blockchain, and Dan Larimer's kind of gone down and saying delegated proof of stake is kind of the future. All of his blockchains are DPoS or delegated proof of stake.
Yeah.
But early on, it actually was mineable.
Right.
And it's an interesting thing to note, because if you think about it, with proof of stake, you can't start a blockchain from scratch with block zero with proof of stake.
Yeah.
There's no way to do that unless you just distribute coins to people through either just to your friends or via an ICO. Right, that's kind of how a lot of the other proof of stake chains are started. Is they do an ICO, they sell, with dollars or ether or some other coin, a bunch of the tokens, and then those people become the initial holders of coins, which then can stake the coins to be able to run the network and make sure
like the upvotes and stuff
that confirm transactions and whatnot.
Yeah.
So Steem, in a way, was one of the most fair launches of a delegated proof of stake, or just proof of stake networks at all. Just because they started with mining, where you just simply needed computers to mine, or ASICs or whatnot. But then they transitioned at some period of time. We don't have that exact date and time, but then transitioned to pure proof of stake.
Proof of stake, yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So there was at least an attempt at a fair launch of a proof of stake chain. However,
there's
kind of a bit of a drama during the launch.
Yeah, like where they had to restart it from the beginning, and then not giving out all the information easily to the public. I mean, it was still public, but not easily,
discoverable.
Discoverable, if you will. And so a lot of the miners, you're 10 days late, which could mean a lot, because it's a lot more difficult to mine compared to the first few days. You're getting less and less coins compared to that, especially if it's faster than Bitcoin. We're not talking, 10 minutes. It's a lot faster.
So people were mining the original chain, and then suddenly Dan Larimer, who at the time obviously was the founder, a co-founder, and worked at Steemit, decided to restart the chain.
Yeah.
And I think I remember you said you had quotes that they didn't really give much notice to the community before the chain actually restarted.
Yeah, it was relaunched a day later with a 30-minute warning.
A 30-minute warning. So for those of you that are miners out there, ask yourself, if you had 30 minutes of warning, how long would it take you to actually take the new code, implement it into your entire mining ecosystem,
and then also set it up and
run it in order to be able to run and start at the at a fair start of block zero.
Yeah.
Now, granted, many more coins have been mined since then, but you just simply didn't have that opportunity to start as close to zero, even if you intended or wanted to.
Right. And so now that's where they kind of consider a pre-mine, or in this case, ninja mine. And by the way, that's
our word of the day. So our word of the day is ninja. So if you're listening, ninja is the word of the day. So you can win now $20 of Bitcoin right into your Edge wallet. Just go ahead and look for one of the tweets that we put out during the week about the word of the day. Make sure you have retweeted that from before. If you haven't, sorry, you're no longer eligible. But if you had retweeted it, go ahead and reply to one of those tweets and post up a screenshot of your Bitcoin QR code within your Edge account.
And make sure you're following us too.
And make sure you're following us, and we'll go ahead and send $20 to the first person that does that for the word of the day, which once again is ninja, which is what they call the early pseudo pre-mine of the Steem blockchain. So getting back to the topic at hand.
Yeah, so then now going to today where the drama is kind of unfolding, because they kind of want to make those ninja pre-mine that's controlled by Steem not part of the system anymore.
Who's the they that wants to do that?
So that would be, I think, Justin Sun and the Tron Foundation, right? So that's the part where I'm kind of still reading up into, so maybe have some more insight.
So Justin Sun and the Tron Foundation recently acquired Steemit.
On February 14, I believe.
Got it. It's February 14. Well, they must love Steemit. They did it on Valentine's Day. So they acquired Steemit on February 14th, and in the process of doing that, acquired obviously all of the coins that Steemit, the company, already owned.
Yeah.
And that comes to, I think you had that metric of how many coins they'd owned.
I got two metrics, but it looks like
two numbers.
65 million that were frozen, and then I don't know, 74 million from two different articles.
60 to 70 million Steem were owned by
legally
Steemit
owned
Inc.
by Steemit.
And effectively that became owned by the Tron Foundation.
Yeah.
Now, what's the big deal about that? I mean, sure, they bought it. It's totally fair. Like, you know, when you buy a company, you gain all of its assets, and one of its assets are Steem tokens. But one thing to note is that in the history of the Steem blockchain, owning Steem tokens obviously allows you to validate the blockchain and also implement changes to the blockchain.
Yeah, so like voting for certain forks.
It's kind of like how miners vote for forks on proof of work blockchains. Owners of Steem can vote for changes to the consensus mechanism on the Steem blockchain. And Steemit, being one of the biggest holders, could vote for changes, but historically they never had. They actually never casted a vote. They just simply held the tokens. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't they give away a lot for just promotional purposes?
Yeah, I think back in 2016 they also gave, or maybe this is during the total of the time that they had it, but they gave away more than half.
More than half of what they had been mining.
Yeah.
And so I know that one of the ways that they do that is they actually stake and burn Steem to be able to activate new accounts.
Yeah.
So for example, I was able to create an account, and it normally cost money for you to be able to create a Steem account. But Steemit, the company, would activate these accounts for free, but you'd have to do a little bit of KYC, give them your email address.
Yep.
And sometimes there'd be a delay just to make sure you're not a bot just trying to, you know, create a whole bunch of different accounts. But they would activate accounts for free. That's one way that they were contributing to the ecosystem with all of the Steem that they had. But they never actually voted on any policies of the consensus network and blockchain. Right. And so the big concern was when Steemit, the company, gets acquired, what would happen to all those tokens? Would they suddenly be used to vote?
Yeah, we start voting
for consensus.
Right.
Exactly. And now that was in the hands of the Tron Foundation and Justin Sun.
Yeah.
And so there was with that concern came an attempt at a fork.
Yeah. That's the fork where they're trying to make the other coins, the Steemit pre-mined coins, not like valid or
not valid. Exactly.
So, but then with that said, if Steem gave away like more than half the coins, then wouldn't the users who received part of that would also become invalid?
It could have been, except it depends on which addresses you're targeting. So it's possible what was happening is they were looking at the addresses that contained Steem coins that were clearly owned by Steemit. So possibly very early coins, kind of looking at Satoshi's coins.
Yeah, yeah.
Like they're old, they haven't been moved, they're just sitting there, they're a big lump of coins. Believing that those were owned by the original founders at Steemit and they now tried to pass a soft fork. This is I always want to clarify who they is.
Yeah,
they is the community of kind of Steem miners, or they're not really miners, but they're more like validators.
Yeah.
Witnesses, they're called.
Right.
We're trying to pass a soft fork that would freeze those funds.
Yeah.
Thereby making those funds, those Steem tokens, unable to vote for changes to the network, and also not be able to move them, meaning that whoever owned those coins would effectively lose that value and that money.
Yeah. If you can't move them, you lose it.
And in the eyes of Justin Sun, he's founder of Tron, and with the Tron Foundation, he thought and felt strongly that was effectively theft.
Yeah,
and
that's like his still.
He in his rightful, view, he's like, I rightfully purchased this company. I have its assets. Why do you have the right to then steal that from me?
Yeah.
And this can definitely be argued on both sides. Like, does the network have the right to go and just remove someone's money?
Yeah.
And in essence, it kind of does if it goes and has a quorum vote, consensus vote to do so. That's kind of how blockchains work. Nothing is immutable on any blockchain. Personally, even Bitcoin isn't immutable. It's just hard for people to come to an agreement.
But it is the way the vote was also done. So Justin Sun, the way he got the votes were deposited funds, of users of Steem into the exchanges, and then the exchanges used, the Steem to be able to vote to kind of block that from the Steem community of their intentions, right?
Correct.
So I guess the question is, I think it's wrong. If you're going to shut down a certain amount of coins, based on the history, I think that is theft. But at the same time, with the way he's going about it, to use funds that are not even yours, it's the funds deposited by the normal people on exchanges, and to use that to vote, I think that's also wrong.
You've kind of got like two wrongs, but both wrongs don't necessarily make either one right.
Right.
Now, the interesting thing about the way Tron was able to kind of squash this initiative, the initiative to stamp out these 60, 70 million coins from being used, right? The coins that were owned by the Tron Foundation. The way he did that was, number one, they activated their own Steem coins and voted themselves. So they owned a large supply of Steem coins, but it wasn't enough by itself. It was 65 million out of how many total?
There's 362, I think, circulating.
362. So it's not the vast majority. Right. Still not the vast majority.
So it's 18%.
Right. So it's less than 20% of the total coins. However, the second thing that he did was go to the exchanges, and he didn't you can't just automatically vote people's money. Like, you actually have to convince the exchanges.
Yeah.
You have to say to the exchanges, exactly, you have to go and convince the exchanges, say, hey, we would like you to vote in our favor.
Right.
And that's the thing he was able to do. Now, how he was able to do that could have been in a number of ways, whether it be bribing them with Tron tokens, offering any other types of deals, maybe offering them Steem tokens, whatnot. How he was able to do that, I don't believe was made public, but he was able to convince these other exchanges to side with him and use the coins that people deposited on those exchanges to vote. But this brings up the bigger question of who really has the right to vote with those coins. Is it the users, or actually is it the exchanges? Is it your keys?
Yeah.
And therefore, is it your coin?
Yeah, but because it's not your keys and it's not your money.
If it's not your keys, it's not your coin. So if you deposit in the exchange,
it's like you're giving them power. It's like you're giving them permission to vote with your coin, because you're leaving it on an exchange. So I guess that kind of
in a way, it's not your money anymore. You've given it to the exchange, and the only right that they have to you is an IOU to give it back when you ask.
Yeah,
that's really the only thing. You're not saying that they need to vote in any one way, shape, or form because they hold your coins. And this is true pretty much of all of the proof of stake coins out there. So if you have EOS on an exchange, you're not voting in any specific way with that EOS.
Yeah.
Right. So and soon Ethereum, which is going proof of stake. You've got Ethereum on an exchange. You're not going to be allowed to vote with it, but the exchanges will.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a general question about holding funds. It's no longer holding funds for a security point of view, or holding funds from a usability point of view. It's holding funds from a consensus point of view. Do you want the consensus network to be fairly centralized into the small number of large exchanges that are holding a vast amount of users' coins?
Right.
That becomes the bigger question. But one way or another, he was able to convince enough large exchanges to use the coins that they were holding on behalf of users to actually vote, and vote on his side. And so thereby kind of eliminating the hackers' attempt, as Justin
they're calling them hackers. But just to clarify also, what exchanges are being included? So looks like Binance, Huobi, Poloniex,
Poloniex.
Were exchanges, or some of the exchanges probably.
Are the ones that basically kind of contributed to this vote.
Yeah.
And that's probably enough. Those are some big name exchanges, plus the coins that Steem already owned, was enough to effectively eliminate the potential for the soft fork. One thing I had heard that Justin Sun was going to do, though I'm not sure how, was to then redistribute the vote of the Steemit coins to the community.
Right.
There was a tweet that he'd put out saying, okay, now that we're sorry, we had to go ahead and activate our coins and initiate a vote.
So that's kind of like the update.
Which was the first time those coins had actually been used to initiate a vote.
Yeah.
But after that, he intends to, quote unquote, redistribute the power amongst the community. But how do you do that without the Steemians? How do you do that without actually giving up that money? Because you can't give a vote without also giving the money. Like the two come hand in hand.
Yeah.
A little bit different. Actually, the funny thing, that's a little different than the way corporate shares typically work, where in corporate shares and ownership and stock, you can have a stock that can earn money and dividends but without voting.
Right.
And you can also have a stock that has a large amount of voting power, but not as much of earning power. Yeah. In the case of Steem, it's kind of 1-to-1. Yeah, right. What you earn is also your ability to vote.
Right.
There's only kind of one class of Steem coins, but we'll see what the Tron Foundation and Justin Sun ends up doing over the next month. But right now,
there was also an update. For today that Tron leadership, they're mediating the situation with the Steemians, Steem witnesses, and they're going to have a discussion tonight at 9 p.m. Pacific time.
Really?
I didn't see
big news.
Where, but it's with the Steem stakeholders and Tron leadership.
Okay, so maybe we'll have an update next week on what exactly is happening with the Steem blockchain. Either way, I hope it survives. It's been a very compelling use case for crypto and blockchain tech outside of just straight financial services, and it definitely has onboarded a lot of people into crypto that had never heard of it, never really cared about it, but found a compelling reason to start putting their content on a blockchain.
Right.
Cool. So best wishes for the Steemians out there.
Yep, for the Steemians.
Going into the next topic, which is a big hot topic for just the past couple of days, is India.
Yeah. So what's up with India?
Uplifting their ban. So let's go back into the history of the ban of Bitcoin in India. And so this goes for me personally back to like 2014, 2015. I'd met actually one of the co-founders of Hoonah Coin, easily one of the biggest exchanges, wallet services out of India. And they had been growing gangbusters, getting more users, millions of users back when there were barely anyone on crypto in 2014, 2015.
Yeah, they were there in the early days.
Exactly. Investments from, dozens of different investors. And then suddenly out of what felt like almost nowhere was it April of 2018?
Yeah, that's right.
It wasn't exactly even the government necessarily of India, but the Reserve Bank of India,
the RBI,
frequently called the RBI, issued a ban. But what exactly was the ban? Right, the ban was not that Bitcoin was illegal, not that cryptocurrencies were illegal, not that you couldn't own Bitcoin, not that you couldn't trade it.
Yeah.
To be more specific, the ban made it such that financial service companies or banks couldn't facilitate the owning, trading, selling, anything to do with virtual currencies. The specific quote was, banks and financial institutions, it excluded and prohibited banks and financial institutions from facilitating any service in relation to virtual currencies.
Anything related to crypto.
So effectively, you couldn't buy crypto with a bank account.
Yeah.
If you were found buying crypto with a bank account, that bank could get in trouble. So banks basically cut off access to any exchanges. And this is what you hear a lot is really the choke point isn't so much that the company's doing something bad, the crypto company, it's the choke point being the banks.
Yeah.
So a lot of companies in the space just started tanking, just going downhill from there. And since I was fairly close to the Hoonah Coin team, I kind of followed them closely. And we had heard that by April of 2019, they had actually laid off about half of their staff.
Wow. So
over 50% of their staff laid off, went from 28 people down to 14. This company's been around since 2013.
Yeah.
Growing pretty well. And not only that, but later that year in 2018, in October of 2018, 2 of its co-founders were actually arrested.
Wow. Okay.
But the details of the arrest actually didn't have so much to do with the quote-unquote ban on Bitcoin.
Not even related?
Oh, it's related, but not. I'm sure the government doesn't like the sound of Bitcoin, of selling Bitcoin, but to circumvent the problem of people not being able to use the banks to deposit money into the exchange, what they did, they started to launch ATMs, right? Bitcoin kiosks, where people can put in cash, and that would deposit that amount of currency, or fiat currency, into their account, on Hoonah Coin. And Hoonah Coin was a fully custodial exchange wallet service. And so you're really depositing fiat into your account, which you can then go into Hoonah Coin online or on their mobile app and trade that for Bitcoin back and forth.
That's a smart idea. It's like how they
It's kind of a smart idea.
That's smart.
And however, one of the quote-unquote mistakes that they had made is when they put up their machines, their kiosks, they put the word ATM on it.
Yeah.
And you'll hear a lot of people really balk at that, especially ATM companies in the US. They'll say, we're not an ATM, we're not an ATM, we're a BTM. Or we're a kiosk, or just a teller machine. And
like that's a vendor,
soda can exactly, exactly. We're a vending machine. We're a Bitcoin vending machine, crypto vending machine. And that's because the term ATM, even though it just simply means automated teller machine, has some regulatory implications.
You got to have the licenses.
Exactly, it's the licenses.
Just because you're at ATM now.
Exactly, and so by them, and there's photos of their ATM machine with some marketing to the left of it showing Bitcoin and the word ATM on it. So many people speculate that if they just hadn't put the word ATM on there, that they may have not gotten arrested and stopped.
Right.
Because the reason that they were kind of stopped and the machines freezed and their 2 co-founders arrested was on the grounds of them operating an unlicensed ATM.
Yeah, because you have to have a license to run ATMs, even here in the United States.
Exactly. Since it technically wasn't an ATM from the viewpoint of withdrawing cash from a bank, then it's like you said, it's kiosk. It's a vending machine.
Yeah.
And so but just the fact that they're arrested, a lot of people don't look into the nuanced details of why were they arrested. They immediately think 2 people operating a Bitcoin company were arrested, and suddenly the entire industry gets scared. And it's true that the ripple effect in India was that many companies shut down after that. Many didn't cease operating. And even later in the year, Hoonah Coin is recently that was 2019 when they laid off half of their staff. Going into October of 2019, we're kind of almost on the verge of closing down.
Right.
And I know some of the co-founders actually had left and started working for other companies. but 4 companies, I'm presuming at least Hoonah Coin and a few others, and I know ZebPay being one of the more popular ones as well, were part of creating an initiative to lobby the Supreme Court of India.
That's how they got overturned.
To reverse the ban.
Yeah.
So they'd been lobbying for months, if not years, to say, hey, this is an unfair ban.
Right.
Lobby, let's just get it removed. And that is effectively what was just reversed.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, it wasn't the RBI that reversed it. It was actually the Supreme Court forced the RBI, the Reserve Bank of India, which is a little bit interesting. You always think of like the people that make the money in the government are the same, and they don't really ever.
Yeah, they're like kind
of like together and whatnot. This is an example where no, they're not. The RBI still to this day does not want to reverse the ban, but they're being forced to.
Yeah, it looks like they're trying to get that overruled again, or overturned. The RBI.
They're trying to get
they're trying to get overturned.
I'm sure they're going to look for some appeal.
With the Supreme Court.
Right. They're going to try to look for some appeal. But in the meantime, the exchanges are definitely opening the floodgates. And so
immediately.
Immediately. Several exchanges have opened the floodgates, ZebPay being one of them. And they've even reported that their servers have effectively been not taken down, but have been overloaded. So they've shut down because they've been overloaded with just a huge amount of traffic. This is pent-up demand for now the past couple of years.
Yeah. And they have a huge population. So.
They've got a huge population, all of which have a very, very strong interest in using crypto and Bitcoin.
And tech savvy.
Exactly. Tech savvy, don't trust the fiat currencies. And if some people don't remember, India's the location that had also taken one of the denominations of their currency and effectively wiped it out.
Yeah, so if you remember, I think it was last or 2 years ago where they made some of the bills, like the older bills, illegal. So a lot of people, like whether, like you're, like a dealer or whatnot, it's harder to get the actual real funds that you could legitimately deposit into your bank because they made those older bills illegal.
They just basically wiped out some older bills. And so what you had to do was take your older bills before a cutoff date and deposit them into a bank.
Yeah, but then how do you do that if you have millions and millions and millions of unexplained money if you're some kind of dealer?
Exactly. And that was what they were trying to do. They're basically trying to unearth a lot of this hidden money.
Yeah.
And so that created obviously a very, very strong interest in crypto at the time. And I don't think Bitcoin was banned at the time, and it created quite a lot of price discrepancy between the Bitcoin value in India versus the Bitcoin value in the US and other countries, where it would actually have a higher price in India than it would be in the US and the UK, which made for a very, very interesting use case from the viewpoint of remittance. So for once, you could actually remit money, meaning buy it in the US and then remit it to India in Bitcoin.
And it's worth more.
But then when they're selling it there, it's actually worth more.
Yeah.
So as opposed to paying Western Union 5, 10, 15% to send $200, you're actually making money by sending it over there.
You're making money sending it to another country.
That obviously became much harder, and that price difference dropped a lot because, people simply couldn't buy or sell it in India. Although now it's available, for at least for the time being, and unless the RBI has their way.
Unless they overturn it again.
Exactly, unless the RBI has its way. So I'd say it's a congrats to the companies that have been working hard in the crypto space in India to be able to continue operations. Those that have survived will be able to continue operations. And just as a heads up as well, as you know, with Edge, we try to offer buying and selling of Bitcoin and other cryptos all around the world. India is definitely a hot market that we want to target.
Right.
And we've been actively talking to several potential partners in India that have obviously kind of hit this. In the midst of us talking to them, back in 2018, they hit this ban and unfortunately weren't able to provide services. But hopefully we'll have something live and able to service that community as well through a partner in India, so long as that ban stays lifted.
Right.
Cool. So that's the latest. And we'll definitely, if we hear anything, we'll keep you guys updated on future Friday Q&As.
Yeah. And then in the meantime, events. We have some news.
News and events.
Kind of bad news.
Unfortunately, with the a lot of the media news on coronavirus,
COVID-19.
People COVID-19, people being concerned about it. Obviously, that's halted a lot of people's travel plans. And it's halted a lot of events, actually. So one event that we were headed to, and literally in the midst of pushing out news about us hosting some events over at the Bitcoin 2020 conference in San Francisco. Unfortunately, that just literally minutes before this live stream was announced that it's going to be postponed until Q3 this year. And so we're hoping to still be a part of it later this year. We'll see how that pans out. But for now, the event is postponed or canceled, as however you may see it. And we obviously won't be attending, unfortunately.
Right.
So for now, we actually don't really have a lot of events on our kind of forward schedule. We'll see what even is going to happen over the next couple of quarters. But at most, we'll probably be attending some of the local events here in San Diego.
Meetups.
We're still, the different meetups, both in crypto and not in crypto. But we'll keep you abreast of any new events that we decide to attend. So it's kind of a bummer. I know at least if consensus continues, that's still a couple months away. March, April. Actually, it's only a couple months away. So consensus in a couple months, early to mid-May in New York City by the CoinDesk team. If that does push through, which we're crossing fingers does, I'll be speaking there, I think on a couple different talks. So one on a workshop for mining, and another talk about just general crypto and business. So hope to see people there for consensus, crossing fingers that that event does still push through over in New York in early May. So until next Friday.
Yeah, not your keys, not your money.
Not your keys, not your money, and not your vote for delegated proof of stake
too. That's
blockchains.
the main takeaway.
Cool. All right, thanks a lot, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Bye.